Let's return now to Scott Davies, a former Labor staffer and principal advisor at Rainmaker Advisory. Scott, sorry, we had some audio issues there when you were just explaining what you thought was behind such an astounding result there in Tasmania and really right across the country.
Yeah, Ash, sometimes Labor can scare the horses by not being in the sensible centre in Tasmania. Tasmanians want political parties that genuinely are concentrating on those issues which are bread and butter political issues. They totally did that this time. The Housing Australia Future Fund is actually building houses in Australia. There was a concentration on health and Medicare and the urgent care clinics that Labor are building. That is the kind of thing that resonates with Tasmanians when Labor is concentrating on those kind of issues. And in addition to that, for the first time in a long time, Tasmania had a set of really, really quality candidates that were reflective of exactly what their electorates want, need, and are resonant with Labor Party voters. So you had Anne Urquhart in Braddon, who's a long-time resident of Braddon and the Northwest Coast, been a senator for Tasmania, a genuine Northwest Coaster. Jess Teasdale in Bass, I think, is really, really reflective of that community. And you had Beck White. Now, Beck White is a phenomenal political talent. She should be a minister at some point, very soon on a federal basis. She's led the Labor Party in Tasmania. She's a much more quality candidate than the previous candidate we've had who held the seat for 3 or 4 terms. So I think the combination of those factors has meant that Labor really, really put together a package of both issues and personalities which worked incredibly well and got up to 15% swings. Beck got a 14% swing, Anne Urquhart got a 15% swing, Jess Teasdale got a 10% swing because of that in comparison to what the Liberal Party had to offer, and the quality of the campaigns were chalk and cheese.
What does this mean, do you think, Scott, for the Labor Party's agenda and how bold it may now feel when it comes to some of the reforms that may have been on the back burner in the first term?
Yeah, Ash, that's a great question. And I think exactly that question is why we won seats in Tasmania. Because the Labor Party was seen as a sensible and safe pair of hands, because there is an agenda which the Labor Party has said it will do and has not diverted from that agenda, I think that's why you do win seats in places like Tasmania. They are conservative. They do not want policy decisions made without being referred to an election, and they don't want to be scared by something. They do not want to see something that they do not know about. And as a consequence, I think that safe pair of hands means that we will continue with that if we want to keep winning seats like Tasmanian seats.
Now, Scott, you're on Team Red, so it's a bit of a free kick to ask you where the Conservatives went wrong here. But if in another world you were advising the Liberal Party, where would you start? What direction would you want to see the leadership go in?
Yeah, Ash, look, I want to be analytical about this rather than partisan. And I think I am in terms of what I said to you on Friday afternoon I thought was going to happen. I think this, right? Labor should not be too triumphant about this election result, and they haven't been. Last night and this morning, Jim Chalmers and Anthony Albanese have been appropriately humble about this result, because let's face it, everything went right for Labor in this election. Everything went wrong for the Liberals in this election, and that's not just how it was contrived. There's a lot of luck there, and I think there are 4 factors which won this election. One is a really good Labor campaign. One is a very poor Liberal campaign. One is Donald Trump. And apparently the tracking polls show it's not the tariffs that turned people to Labor in Australia. It was when Zelensky was kicked out of the Oval Office in the White House that turned that. And then the policy platforms, right? And then finally, Alfred. I think Alfred had a real effect on the way in which this election went, in that it forced the Labor Party to go back to the Parliament, have that budget, enable them to put the tax cut up, and then the Conservatives decided to vote against that tax cut, which I think was a pretty silly thing to do in retrospect. And then their policies were on marbles, bringing people back to work, working from the office rather than working from home, silly things like that which tripped them up. The most unfortunate part of this entire campaign, Ash, I think, is that the best speech that Peter Dutton did was his concession speech last night. That genuinely showed what sort of a really good bloke Peter Dutton is, and a really considerate individual that everyone talks about when they meet him individually, but it just did not show throughout the campaign because the Liberals were defined by the Labor Party from the first week of the campaign, and they never got a chance to get any traction.
Scott Davies, really appreciate your insights. As always, thank you so much for joining us after what was no doubt a late night for you as well last night as you were going through all those results. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ash.